everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and it's time to talk about AEW Dynamite. There were some more tournament matches this week. There were some other matches taking place involving other wrestlers who aren't in the tournament, and generally things kept chugging along. So, without any further ado, let's take a look at how good the show was. But how good was the show? There's only one way to find out, and that is by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. Bloody nailed that intro in the first take. Absolutely nailed it. The cold open to this week's show, which seems to be a bit of a theme of these empty arena shows, little cold opens, often featuring Jake the Snake Roberts, but this week's features Cody Rhodes. He is talking about the TNT Championship Tournament in very flowery, very poetic language. He talks about his opponents and builds them up. He also talks about himself, and he says, what is future endeavors if the endeavor isn't there? Which is, I think, in a kayfabe sense, because outside of the ring, Cody's endeavor has been kind of unmatched by anybody ever released by WWE. But in the ring, he's talking about his inability to win championships and says that he really needs to win this title. But I liked the package as well, because it wasn't just about Cody, it was about everyone else in the tournament. But it was mostly about Cody. He says he doesn't want to be known as the guy who broke the throne with the sledgehammer at Double or Nothing, the Triple H throne. He doesn't want to be known as the guy who broke the throne because he himself was afraid to sit in it, and says basically at the end of everything, it all comes down to will. Who has the will to win this tournament the most? This was a decent opening to the show. It gets a B+ grade from me. I have to address that last week, I know that I've been giving a lot of B+ out recently and said that Dynamite seemed to have found their level on a weekly basis, but on review, last week should have really been maybe a B grade, maybe even a B-. There were a lot of squash matches there, lots and lots, and I just feel bad, so I just want to hold my hands up and say that even though this segment gets a B+, last week's overall grade should probably have been lower. Thanks for your time. Next up, we do have a match in the TNT Championship Tournament and a rematch from a pay-per-view as well. It's Sammy Guevara taking on Darby Allin, but Sammy jumps Darby during his entrance with a big dive from inside the ring to the outside, because Darby's done that to Sammy in their previous match, and we love storytelling. We're all historians here at Cultaholic. The attack isn't over as Sammy fetches a ladder from under the ring and makes a ladder bridge between the crowd barrier and the ring apron. He lays Darby on it, goes up top, and just flies with a splash from the top rope onto this ladder bridge, and the ladder does not give an inch. It looks very painful for both men involved. An EMT comes along and checks on Darby, but Sammy, because he's the heel, shoves the EMT away, and he rolls Darby back in the ring, and he says, ring the bell, and the match starts properly. Darby fights his way back into the match though. He survives the early onslaught, fights his way back in, and is really working over one of the feet of Sammy Guevara, so much so that the boot has to come off at one point, but Sammy, despite limping heavily, still manages to nail a one-legged springboard cutter because he's a freak. Both men are bleeding by the end of this match, Darby from the nose, Sammy I think from the mouth. It's been a very physical encounter. And there's a nice finishing sequence as well. Darby hits his Stun Dog Millionaire thing, goes for the springboard, but Sammy catches him on his back, goes for his finisher, but Darby catches the knee and rolls him up into the Last Supper, which just is kind of like his super finisher at the minute, and that's enough for the 3 count. This gets an A-. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a really good tournament match, maybe the best tournament match we've seen so far. I did really enjoy Cody and Shawn Spears as well, but obviously that finish divided opinion, and my opinion was on the negative side of things. I didn't like the being pinned because you're in so much pain from the figure 4 spot, because if you're in so much pain, why are your shoulders flat on the mat? But this match was a good one. Darby progresses in the tournament, and I think that means he'll meet Cody next. Next up, we go to the Hardy compound where Matt Hardy is cutting a promo on Chris Jericho. And Jericho's been on commentary again, by the way, in this episode. And Matt Hardy says, right, so I laid out, no, not in that language. He goes, right, so I laid out a challenge to you. No, he's like, ah, yes, last week I laid out a challenge. My impression of Broken Matt Hardy is pretty shoddy. He says he laid out a challenge to Jericho. Jericho never responded. He never turned up at the Hardy compound for the Elite Deletion match. So instead, he's challenging Sammy Guevara now, because Sammy Guevara was the only one brave or foolish enough to mention Matt Hardy's name in that whole Bubbly Bunch segment from last week. So now the challenge is for Sammy, not for Jericho, and then Broken Matt Hardy transforms into regular Matt Hardy, which is an interesting approach, which I don't think he's ever done before in kayfabe while in the broken Matt Hardy guise, but he turns into real Matt Hardy, normal Hardy, and talks about his relationship with Jericho. He says they've known each other for 20 years now, they've been friends, they've been enemies, they've been allies, they've been rivals, and he knows, they know each other inside out, but he's figured out Jericho's plan here at AEW, and he wants to explain why he didn't align with somebody that he has so much history with. Matt Hardy says that's because he chose instead to align with Cody, the Bucks, Kenny Omega, people that he respects greatly, and people who are the pillars of AEW. And he knows what Jericho's doing. He knows that Jericho wants to take out the pillars, take out the elite, and then AEW will descend into chaos. And then from that chaos, Jericho will be able to take advantage and become champion and top dog again. And Matt Hardy's like, I don't want that. I don't want that at all, because AEW should be about the future. This is a bloody great angle to take, I think. And I really enjoyed that aspect of this promo segment. I'm going to overall, though, I'm going to give this segment a B+. It would have got a higher grade if it was just that last bit, but I don't know what to make of Jericho being pulled from that elite deletion thing and then Sammy Guevara being put in. On one hand, it's a really good platform for Sammy, it's a match against Matt Hardy, whatever form this match takes. However, I think that if it was Matt and Jericho, that would have left the result a bit more in doubt, whereas now I'm pretty certain that Matt Hardy's going to get the upper hand and continue to go after Jericho. Maybe the point of it was that they didn't want Jericho to take another loss and that Matt Hardy has to beat somebody, so they put Sammy in. I don't really know. I don't know what the match is going to look like. I don't know anything about that. It gets a B+ overall. Loved the last half of this promo, though. Next up, we get Allin Angels, or Angles? Angels. Allin Angels taking on Kenny Omega. Now, when Angels came out and they pointed out on commentary that he lost his debut match for AEW against Lance Archer, that was him, the one getting just destroyed by Lance Archer, I was like, oh, here we go. Another squash match then. And it wasn't really. It was a little bit more competitive than I thought, and I think it lasted about 5 minutes in the end. Omega obviously got the win with a big knee to the face. He didn't even have to resort to the one-winged angel, but I still think that it was a good performance from Angels and from Omega as well. They had a nice little match together given the circumstances. It gets a B grade. I really think that Angels has something about him. If it's true what they said on commentary and that he's only got 3 years of experience, then he's really, really good. He's an excellent seller already, for example, and he seems really athletic too. I think he's probably got quite a good future, but that's just speculation. But watch this match and check him out and see what you think as well. The match gets a B grade, and obviously Kenny Omega wins. Next up, Jimmy Havoc versus Orange Cassidy. Now, I was really hoping this match would have some sort of no DQ stipulation so we could see Jimmy Havoc at his most evil and twisted, and Orange Cassidy having to survive and hang on, and maybe throw in a few comedy spots involving various weapons as well. Unfortunately though, it was just a straight up singles match. Havoc jumps Cassidy before the bell. He's just beating him up, just dominating for a lot of the opening stages of this match. They go outside, he rests Orange against the ring post, goes for a chop. I'm like, I know what's going to happen here. I've seen wrestling before, and I know that Jimmy Havoc's going to miss and chop the ring post. That's not what happens. They swerve-a-rooskied me. That's a wrestling term, isn't it? Swerve-a-rooski, yeah. Orange Cassidy ducks, Jimmy Havoc stops his hand short, and just slaps him on the back of the neck. So yeah, that's not what I expected to happen, but it was a nice take on an otherwise overused spot. Jimmy just continues to dominate, and at one point mockingly shoves Orange Cassidy's hands into his own pockets. Big mistake, Mr. Havoc. What are you doing? Obviously now, Orange Cassidy starts to fire up. He's running around with his hands in his pockets. He's jumping off the top rope. He's doing that big Superman punch as well. And that was probably the worst tactical error I have ever seen in a wrestling match. But despite making such an error, Havoc is pretty much saved by Penelope Ford, who gets on the apron and prevents Orange Cassidy from making the pinfall attempt. She's on the apron distracting, so Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta come around the side of the ring and they yank her legs, and she just does the splits on the apron. And they're both like, oh, that didn't work. Bang! Kip Sabian's in the ring suddenly over the top rope and takes out both of the best friends. It wasn't quite as seamless as I've just made it sound there. There was a little bit of a Papa Shango WrestleMania 8 situation, if you know what I mean. He wasn't that late. It was fine. Amidst all the chaos, back in the ring, Orange Cassidy avoids an attack by Penelope Ford, rolls up Jimmy Havoc, and picks up a big victory. Orange Cassidy with the win. Bloody hell. Now, an Orange Cassidy victory in a singles match would usually be called for like a big celebration, a parade through the streets, an A+ grade. I'm only going to give this one a B just because the shenanigans at the end I don't think were executed as smoothly as the people involved had hoped. Still, it was a pretty decent match with the heel dominating for long stretches and a big babyface comeback at the end. Next up, here comes Lee Johnson to take on Wardlow. Here's our squash match. Wardlow wins easily in a minute or two with his big spinning F5 thing. I'm going to give it a C+. Lee Johnson may be my favourite of all the jobbers that we've seen on AEW recently, because first of all he lost to Brodie Lee, understandable, then he lost to QT Marshall, less so, and then he's lost to Wardlow, understandable again. I'm invested in his journey. Next up we go to a video package, a Dark Order video package nonetheless, and we see an unseen guy in his bedroom drinking alone, listening to a voicemail of a girl breaking up with him. We've all been there, haven't we, guys? Guys, we've all been there? Guys? He searches the Dark Order online and suddenly we cut to a meeting. He's there, he's made it. He's in a meeting with Brodie Lee. Brodie asks him, how tall are you? He says 6'2". How much do you weigh? About 240 pounds. I mean, these are my stats as well, I can't believe it. And then Brodie goes, did you play college football? The guy's like, yes, I did. In the earlier scene, we saw footage of him watching football highlights on YouTube. And then Brodie's like, right, you're in. There we go. This is obviously a bit of a take on the whole Vince McMahon thing, but there were no jokes about sneezing, I guess, this time, or coughing in his presence. And I'm intrigued to see who this guy is, because we didn't see him at all. Is he going to be a name we recognize from the indies, or is he going to be just like a total unknown like Wardlow was? I mean, I'm sure that some indies had Wardlow before AEW, but certainly I'd never heard of him. So that's pretty exciting stuff. Then Brodie Lee comes out and just absolutely squashes Justin Law. And by the way, I'd like to apologize to Justin, because I said that Lee Johnson was my favorite jobber. Obviously Justin's my favorite jobber, because he's me. So overall, this whole Brodie Lee segment gets a B- grade. It was the second squash match in a row, which is never that good, but it gets saved a little bit by that video package, which I did enjoy. It wasn't just Brodie Lee being mean to his cronies just for a bit of character development that we've already seen a few times now and don't really need anymore. It was actually a bit of storyline progression, because, you know, he's got a big lad, and we're going to find out who that big lad is. Next up, it's another Bubbly Bunch segment featuring the members of the Inner Circle, all on lovely FaceTime calls with each other. Now, Sammy's a bit down this week, and why is that? It's because his friend Jake Hager lost to Jon Moxley and is not the AEW World Champion. Hager, by the way, is just absolutely fine with it. The other members are like, cheer up, Sammy, come on, it's not so bad. Let's do a flim flam to pick our spirits up. And I'm like, what on earth is this going to be? It turns out Flim Flam is their take on TikTok, which, you won't believe this, I'm actually too old to understand. If anyone can explain TikTok in like a sentence or two, please do leave a comment in the section down below there. But they all do a TikTok dance. It's sort of like doong, 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 doong. No, I think that's it. I thought I'd forgotten a step there, but that pretty much was it. Now, they all say that Sammy's is the best because he takes it like far beyond the brief. He's doing flips, he's doing breakdancing spins and stuff. And they were like, well, Sammy won then. And Jericho's actually annoyed. He bet a bottle of hand sanitizer on this. He's looking at his phone. He's like, why are you such a goddamn show-off, Sammy? Hope you enjoy your hand sanitizer. And throws the sanitizer at the phone and it bounces off. And then we end the segment with a lovely close-up of one of Jericho's hounds. B+ is the grade. It should be higher, but Jake Hager should have won the Flim Flam contest because he was easily the smoothest. Yes, Sammy was doing flips and everything. Watch that Jake Hager bit. He has got some moves, that boy. And finally, the main event, the tournament match between Dustin Rhodes and Kip Sabian. And in the build-up to this, throughout the show, we saw a little video of Cody listening to a voicemail from Dustin saying, right, look, if I can't beat this guy, then I don't belong in the ring anymore. I'm probably going to retire. So Dustin's definitely winning. We head to the match, and it's pretty good. It's a back and forth contest. It's quite fully developed. It's what you want essentially in a TV main event. Sabian is working the leg a lot. Dustin is fighting back, but a lot of his offense is knee based. Like he's doing he's bouncing Kip Sabian's head off his knee and then goes like, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. So it's quite interesting to see how Sabian stays in control and cuts off Dustin's comebacks. Towards the end though, Penelope Ford and Brandy get into it on the outside. We can't quite see what started this whole thing. I know that Brandy's the babyface, but it looked like she started it, which is a bit mean. I'm sure she didn't though. In fact, I think Penelope may have gotten on the apron or tried to do a distraction or something. Anyway, Penelope gets in the ring thinking I'm gonna hit those ropes, come back and dive onto Brandy on the outside. But Brandy obviously sees this, gets in the ring first and just cuts her off with a spear. Job done. Sabian is not happy about these developments and it cost him the match as well, with Dustin hitting a destroyer and picking up the big victory. He moves on to face Lance Archer in the next round. This gets a B+. I think that I would have liked to see Kip Sabian win, just because he's younger and there's probably more of an upside of him going on in the tournament. But from the moment that Dustin said, you know what, I'm going to retire if I can't beat him, then you kind of knew that Dustin was going to win. Even before that, I thought Dustin was going to be winning this match because the bracket is structured in a way that Dustin goes on to beat Lance Archer, and I'm assuming that Lance is going to just absolutely destroy Dustin. and then Cody's going to want revenge, and that all kind of sets up nicely. Yeah, I think that's good booking, to be honest, and I'm going to give it a B+ grade. It was a decent match, and even though I would have liked to see Kip win, I understand why he didn't. Overall, you'll never guess what, I'm giving this show a B+ grade, but with the caveat that last week's show should have been a B, right? I'm not just giving B+ every week. Last week was a mistake. I'm sorry. I'll never do it again. Wrestling is subjective, please don't hurt me too much. But no, I did make a mistake, because looking back, I should have given that one a B, and this week's does get a B+, and I'm not going to change my mind next week on this one. I swear down. I'm worried that I will. Thanks very much for watching. That has been AEW Dynamite. What did you think of the show? Let me know in the comments section down below. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Stay safe out there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.